The TFSA is a great tool for investing because you don't have to pay any tax on the growth that you'll get on your investments over a long period of time. But knowing how much you can actually contribute to your TFSA is critical because over-contributing can lead to ridiculous penalties. It's 1% per month on every dollar that you over-contribute to your TFSA. So in this video, I'm going to explain to you exactly how much you can contribute to your TFSA, and stick around to the end, and then I'll show you how to avoid that pesky over-contribution penalty. Hi, I'm Evan. I'm a certified financial planner, and every day I help Canadians just like you invest smarter, reduce their tax bill, and know exactly how much they can contribute to a TFSA. So let's start at the beginning. You start building your TFSA contribution room when you turn 18. So whatever contribution room is allowed in that year, you will get it assuming you are 18 and you are a Canadian resident. If you were 18 or older when the TFSA launched in 2009, you will have every year's worth of contributions leading up till the present day, as long as you are a Canadian resident during that whole period of time. The TFSA room has changed over the years because it goes up with inflation, rounded to the nearest $500, which creates this weird period of time where, depending on how much inflation there was or wasn't, changes how much TFSA room you are allowed to use. And there was this one weird year where you could do $10,000 in 1 year and then it got scaled back again. So contribution room can be very difficult to figure out. So here's a graphic that's showing exactly how much contribution room you can have depending on what year you turned 18. So if you were at least 18 in 2009, meaning you were born in 1991 or earlier, you would have the maximum allowable contribution room of $95,000. People often get tripped up on the new contribution room in that year, thinking that's how much they can contribute at one time. No, that is just the new room that you can contribute in addition to all of the previous years that you've accrued so far. So let's just use an example here of somebody that turned 18 here in 2024. This one's really easy. You turn 18 in 2024, you get 2024's contribution room. So in this year, you get $7,000 to use in your TFSA. You'll start to see how this all works by just going backwards 1 year. So say you turned 18 in 2023, you would have the contribution room from 2023 and 2024. So last year in 2023, it was $6,500. This year in 2024 is $7,000, and so your total contribution room, assuming you haven't contributed yet to a TFSA, is $13,500. So it doesn't matter that this year was only $7,000. You have last year and this year to use. It's not a situation where if you don't use it, you lose it. You can accumulate as much room as possible, and you can use it at a future date or all at once. Okay, so now this is where things get interesting a little bit. And if you're with me so far, I'd love it if you could like this video and hit the subscribe button so you can see more videos just like this about TFSAs and how to maximize your investments over the long term. Okay, say you had the maximum contribution room of $95,000 and you invested $95,000 into your TFSA, perhaps all at once, just for the sake of this example. Say, for example, you invested $95,000 at the beginning of this year, and let's fast forward until June and say that $95,000 has now increased with that hypothetical investment to $100,000 by June. Fantastic. Now you decide to withdraw that money from your TFSA. Maybe you have a big purchase in mind, maybe a down payment on a house, something like that, and you decide to withdraw that money from whatever it was invested in. Could even be something like cash or a high interest savings account or whatever. And you decide to withdraw that from your TFSA and put it into your bank account. You're ready to make your purchase. Maybe it's your down payment on the next house, whatever you decide to spend the money on, but oh no, the deal falls through and suddenly you don't have to make that purchase anymore. And you have $100,000 that you withdrew from your TFSA sitting in your bank account, and you say, well, forget this, I don't need to make the deal anymore, and so I'd like to make that contribution back to my TFSA. No, please don't do this. This is exactly where people get hung up on the contribution room rules. So because in this hypothetical situation, the person maximized their TFSA at the beginning of this year and then withdrew it later on in the same year, the way that the rules work is that you cannot put that money back into your TFSA until January of the following calendar year. So there are two things to keep in mind here. So that contribution room only comes back in January of the following calendar year, But there's also a fun little wrinkle of something that I call the high watermark principle. And so because you invested 95 and it turned into 100 and you actually withdrew the $100,000, the way that the recontribution room works is that you don't get the original contribution room, you get whatever you withdrew. So because you benefited from an increase in value on your investment, you can actually put all of that $100,000 back, but again, you have to wait until the following calendar year to do so. In addition to that recontribution room that you get from taking money out of your TFSA, in this case $100,000, you'll also get next year's contribution room in addition to that on the first day of January. And so there's lots of things to keep in mind when making a recontribution to your TFSA, especially when you're in a situation where you're maximizing your TFSA or at least getting close to it. You have to be very, very careful of that, because in that situation where you withdrew $100,000 and say you decided to put it all back in the next month, that $100,000 that you put back in would actually count as an over contribution by the full amount of the $100,000, and you'd be charged 1% per month that it was over contributed by. And so until January of the next year, you'd be paying 1% a month on $100,000. So you really, really, really want to be sure that you have the contribution room to put money into your TFSA, and that could be from either new contribution room that you get from year to year or from withdrawals that you made in a previous year. Taking advantage of your recontribution room can be a great way to use your TFSA for big purchases and things like that, especially in your retirement years. And so if you want to see how I did that with a client personally, you can check out this video here to see how I made a $187,000 TFSA contribution for a real person. Thanks so much for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.